Welcome to TechWire, a conversation about government, politics, and technology. I'm Christina Gagnier, and today I'm joined by Paul Benedetto, a principal with the Sacramento Association of Consultants. Paul, thank you so much for joining me again.
Christine, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So you've transitioned out of civil service and are now running a consulting group that hopes to provide consulting services to vendors who want to work with government.
Yes.
Sort of what's your view on that, and why did you get into that?
Well, when I retired about 2.5 years ago, and I figured that this was probably the easiest thing for me to figure out to do, because I'm not a technologist. Most people will tell you that. I don't actually even care that much about technology. I care more about the relationships. And so what I saw that was a glaring weakness was the state government and the vendor community and the relationships. And so what we try to do at the association is to kind of bridge the gap between the relationship. Yeah, we do, some of us are more technically savvy than the others in the group, but we do try to, it's important for us that our vendors that we represent have great relationships with the people that they're trying to deal with, that they understand how the state does business, that they also understand kind of the complexities of the state, and that they truly get how hard it is to be a civil servant doing a lot of these jobs.
And what do you see as some of the pain points in the vendor relationship with government? Is it the fact that there's a different way of doing things sometimes in the private sector that doesn't necessarily translate into government, or they just maybe don't have a context for how government has to operate?
Both. I think there's actually probably a couple more pain points. I think the state government as a whole, the state leadership, is uncomfortable of working with the vendors, and they're uncomfortable because they're not sure how far to go. They're not sure what they can do. They're not sure the conversations they can have. And what we've tried to do, even as the Undersecretary for Technology Agency, what we strive to do, and what the CIO Academy is all about, is build those relationships. And that's, if you understand people, if you could build those relationships, the state CIOs or the wannabe CIOs or the future CIOs will understand that we can't do it without the vendors, and the vendors can't do it with us. So we have to start understanding that there are relationships that we need to have, that we should have, that we must have in order to be successful.
So you've mentioned relationships several times, and oftentimes when you come to conferences around government technology, sort of the theme is technology first, but really those relationships are what's going to drive technological change. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Technology changes so quickly, and it's always moving, and what is, the cloud, Chris will be talking about the cloud today. A year and a half from now, he'll be talking about other things in technology, or Carlos will be saying, 5 years ago we were talking about one thing, now Carlos was talking about the cloud over the last 2 years. He's going to talk about project management and the ability to get things done. I think the most important part of that is how we get along with each other, how we work together. And, shows like this, that really focus on, we are talking about technology, we're talking about a lot of different things, but most of the things, I'm on a couple of other panels, and we're talking about relationships, and we're talking about, what's the most important thing for a CIO to understand? How do you develop, and for me, it's always been about developing those relationships and making sure that you understand what you need to do as a CIO. And those relationships are not just with the vendors, they're with your directorate, they're with control agencies, they're with the legislative body, they're with the federal government, they're with everybody. And the only way you're going to really get things done, and I have 1,000 examples of which I had to do this, is through those relationships, because those help you. When you're struggling, those relationships will help you get things done.
You just brought up a good question, which is, what is the most important thing that a CIO needs to understand? So what is that? Relationships,
and how to build relationships. If you don't know how to build relationships, because the technology is going to come and go, but the relationships that you have with the people you work with, the relationships you have with your peers, the people you work for, the vendor community that's going to help you accomplish what you need to accomplish, and it's important, the control agencies and the legislative body, the governor's office, if you have that kind of relationship, those are critical for you to be successful. I'm a big fan of relationships. I'm a big fan of growing your relationships. There are real smart people that are CIOs and wannabe CIOs. The thing that they lack, most of them, are the ability to develop those relationships. And if they can develop those relationships, these really smart people will make us real successful.
Well, Paul, thank you once again for joining us and sharing your expertise.
You take care of yourself. Nice seeing you again.
And thank you again to our audience for joining us in a conversation about government, politics, and technology.